It was like that, except there were no girls and all the cars were just junky CRXs. The biggest Ponzi scheme in Texas history.
He's like, actually, I'm just not going to be here anymore. You're going to do all the work, and then I'm going to keep the company.
Wow, were you there?
Either girlfriends or cars have always
Yeah.
kept me employed.
Like first day, I was like,
Oh,
oh crap. This was a bad move. Righty loosey or righty tighty.
did you have like a couple cool dudes? Cool dudes? Hey guys, welcome to the Just Gonna Send It podcast. I am your host, Jim Belosic. Today we're joined by a very special guest, Bryce Sills, Director of Sales at SendCutSend. Actually, Director of Sales and heads up support and heads up DFM and heads up like a bunch of other stuff, whatever we throw at him, because you're super capable. Anyway, thanks for joining us, man.
Man, glad to be here.
Cool. You're calling us from San Antonio, yeah?
San Antonio, Texas. Yes,
Yeehaw.
sir.
So at SendCutSend, we have about 350 staff. Some of them are remote. Bryce is one. And what we found is it's when we have a remote team, like a lot of our customer support is distributed across the US. When you have a remote team, it's great to be led by remote people because you just get it. When you're in the building and you're trying to run a remote team, it's really hard because you get distracted. You know, people pull you out of rooms and talk to you in the hallway and whatever. So Bryce is doing an incredible job all the way from San Antonio, even though we'd love to have you here in Reno someday, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can talk about
it. Okay. Anyway, today what we want to talk about is how long have you worked for SendCutSend?
3.5 years at this point.
Oh shit. Okay. Yeah, that's good. It either feels like 6 months or like 6 years. So yeah, you're kind of right there. We're going to talk today about like how you got here. You've been here for 3.5 years, but before that you were doing all kinds of cool stuff. You know, we're definitely not going to hire just anyone off the street to run our entire sales team, to run our support team, to run our DFM team, the things that are ultra critical to our business. So we found someone with a lot of talent in order to do that, but you had to gather those talents from somewhere. So that's what we're going to cover.
Sweet.
I think we should probably start in the early days, your youth.
Yes.
You weren't always in San Antonio, right? Where'd you grow up?
No, I'm a new Texan. So I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, just outside of Seattle. We moved there from California when I was 8 or 9 years old.
Do you try and say Pacific Northwest when you're telling Texas people? Because if you say Seattle, they'll glare at you.
That's it. I super choosy who you tell you're not from Texas too. Yeah. We're really, and then never tell anyone you're actually from California because that's
oh my God,
that's a sin. Yeah. So grew up in Seattle. The PNW is a cool place to grow up. We grew up in a very small town, the kind of town where on the last day of school, people would drive their tractors to school. It was that kind of rural place. It's much bigger now, much bigger city now. But grew up there, went to high school there. And then we moved to Texas about 5 years ago. So in the middle of the pandemic, we were like, you know what? It's a good time. The world might end tomorrow. Let's see what else the country has to offer. And we had come down to visit San Antonio to visit my sister here, and like immediately fell in love with it.
Nice.
The people here are great, and so it was still a scary move. Moving across the country is scary as heck, but it was an easy move in terms of weather's fantastic. The real estate was approachable. It was a good move for us.
Well, let's see. It's October 3rd right now. What's the temperature there?
Boy, it's probably 75. Right?
Oh,
yeah, it might even be warmer than that.
Yeah, that's gross. We got snow on the hills this morning, so
not jealous.
So obviously the path that led you here is riddled with fabrication and manufacturing and engineering and everything. What got you interested in that when you were little? You know, oftentimes people who, you know, when they're in their 30s or 40s or whatever, and they're working as an engineer or in fabrication or whatever, 99% of them had some experience as like a 5-year-old. Is that true for you?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think pretty young, I started getting interested in just how things are put together And then like every little kid, once you figure out that things can be taken apart, I was absolutely doing that. Take all the light switch covers off in the house, taking apart bicycles. I started off taking a lot more things apart than putting them together, but it was definitely an interest at a young age. Um, I grew up around a lot of old cars. My grandfather was into pre-war Fords, so riding around in Model Ts and Model As and stuff growing up, definitely that left a big impression on me. And the nice thing with those really old cars is that you can see the function of what they're doing so much more than you can on a new car. So I think that really like just hot wired the interest in all things mechanical, because you could see the mechanical aspects of so much of it.
Yeah, yeah. My dad had Model Ts for a long time, and I remember, like you could at night you could see the arc from the coils, because the coils are mounted on the firewall right there, like interior. There's like a coil box, and you could see each cylinder firing like as you're driving. So you knew if you lost one or not. It's a
Yeah.
cool way to learn cars.
No dome light, but it did, it lights
So
up that way.
so was your grandpa an influence in like working with your hands, or your dad, or who was your mentor back then?
Yeah, it was definitely both. My grandfather lived on the other side of the state, so we got to go see him several times a year, but on a day-to-day basis, it was definitely my dad. He was an electrical engineer. He worked in a very niche industry, and so because it was such a small cottage industry, I got to kind of get exposed to it really really early. Um, it wasn't it. He worked in microfiche, and so what was once a massive industry was pretty quickly shrinking. But that didn't happen until the late '90s, early 2000s, I think. Before that, industry just really got swallowed up by modern computers. So
Can you
we,
can you explain what microfiche is to
oh
some of
yeah,
the younger guys listening?
the under 45 crowd.
Yeah.
So before hard drives existed, the way that you would store massive amounts of important data was to take basically pictures of all the pages of your document. Maybe it's a book or newspapers or whatever, and then these machines would take those pictures and shrink them down to a really tiny size, and basically put them on negatives, on film negatives. So you could go to the library, for example, and look up newspapers from 30 or 40 years ago, and it was basically a giant lit magnifying glass that you would look at all this data on.
Yeah, I remember. I'm old enough to remember at the Douglas County Library, there was like a row of these big, like tube looking things. Had like a big circle. It looked like if you've ever seen like an air traffic controller in a movie, when they're watching the radar screen, it kind of looked like that. And then
Yeah.
you'd put this little black piece of film, and you could move it around with your hands a little bit, and then you'd see the magnification. This is making me feel really old.
Yeah. It's definitely a bygone technology, that's for sure. But yeah, modern hard drives came out, and that went away. But I grew up around those machines, and those machines that were used in making that and converting the pictures of pages into tiny negatives were awesome. I mean, I still remember the first time that I saw like an air logic setup in one of these machines, where you hook the compressed air up to it, and all these little levers and rams and everything move around. The coolest thing ever for a 7-year-old man.
Do
Um,
you happen to still have one up in the attic or anything? Or
Man, they were huge. I mean, that
okay.
tells you how long ago this was. They were 3/4 the size of a car. They were pretty big.
Oh, geez, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Um, so so you said you were exposed to this, via your dad. Is this like him taking you to work, and he's like, sit in the corner, or hey, like polish this up, or any child labor experiences?
Absolutely child labor. So we would go to the shop with him, and while he had to work on a Saturday or whatever, he would take my brother and I with him, and we would go and mess around there. He would bring stuff home for us to, like, these kind of menial tasks for us to work on, in rebuilding these machines. And so he'd say, okay, you've got 10 of these assemblies. You have to take them all apart, get all the bolts in the stripping bin, and get all these things thrown away and replace the washers. And it was awesome. What a cool learning experience to be taking stuff apart. At the time, I'm sure I complained about it like crazy, but looking back, it was definitely it was fundamental in my interest in how things went together.
Yeah, I don't want this to turn into like avocation for child labor, but I think it's good to, bring your kids to work or expose them to some of these things because it can spark that interest early on. Um, my son, when he was as little as we could toss him into the laser, he was in there cleaning because he was little. He was like 35 pounds. We're like, get in there. um, but he started to learn mechanical things. He started to understand how things work. And the more that you can expose your kids to that, the better off they're going to be. I think if the first time you're exposed to it is at university or on the job or something, you're already behind.
You can pick up so many just little points that you don't even realize you're cataloging in your mind. You just pick up all these things. I mean, dumb stuff, righty loosey or righty tighty, lefty loosey. Oh, like you already know that stuff. It's this is
righty loosey, man. Yeah.
Just add heat.
So your dad kind of like got you the spark into all things mechanical with these like super cool microfiche machines, and then we see like oftentimes when I interview, there's another step. It's usually around 16 years old when you start getting a car or whatever, and that kind of levels up your interest in mechanical things.
Absolutely, man. I was moderately interested. I went through the whole bicycle stage, like I think a lot of people did. Definitely skateboarding. Like,
what kind of bike? Like BMX bike? Are you like BMX kid? Or
I wish. Definitely not a BMX kid. I was a roadie, like the skinny tires, long distance kind of thing. Yeah, nerd. Dorks. Sorry. The guys that we all swear at now on the side of the road, like, get out of the road. You're holding up traffic. No, so I went through all that, but then 16 or actually 15, I was out with some friends and came across a car for sale in a parking lot. The most glorious 1986 Honda Prelude that there ever was.
Ooh, yeah.
And it was in pretty decent shape. It was right around how much money I had saved up. And so right there, those two things, like it doesn't have 4 flat tires and I can mostly kind of afford this thing. And so I bought it. I think it was $1,600. So that was every penny I had from working at a grocery store. Bought this car, didn't have a license yet because I wasn't old enough. So but my dad was into it. He was quiet to my mom about how cool he thought this car was. And then immediately helped me start taking stuff apart and making it faster, making it better, making it louder. So we did quite a lot. We did a lot of messing around with that car, but straight piped it and lowered it.
Oh God. What was the power plant? It's like a 2 liter or?
No, I think it was a 1.8.
Oh God.
1.6 or 1.8. Yeah. Straight piped. Put a performance clutch in it that was out of something else. I mean, it was jerry rigged for sure. It was so fun, man. It felt like you were doing supercar kind of things.
Yep.
Because it was a go-kart with a roof, but we had a blast with that car. So we did a lot of drag racing. That definitely upped my interest. Once you start making tweaks to go faster, now you're thinking about it when you're getting ready to go to bed at night. You're thinking about how you're going to spend your grocery store paycheck to make that thing go faster.
I was going to say, modifying cars keeps you employed. Like you have to have a paycheck, that's 100%. Yeah. Either girlfriends or cars have always kept me employed. I either needed money to go out on a date, or I needed money for some sort of power adder on a car. So drag racing, is this like Friday night club level, or how serious are you?
So it was never super serious. We went to the drag strip and raced there. This is so early on in like modifying Hondas that most times a lot of places wouldn't even let you race a Honda. It was kind of muscle cars only.
Honda racism. Yeah.
Honda racism.
Pre Fast and Furious, right?
This is pre Fast and the Furious. So, but I wasn't the only one. There was a bunch of us that wanted to race. And so at least in the Seattle area, street racing was huge. Like, speaking of Fast and the Furious, remember that warehouse scene at the beginning of the first one where it was like that, except there were no girls and all the cars were just junky CRXs, but it was awesome, man. So we did a lot of drag racing. Not proud of it now as an adult, but god dang, what a fun time that was.
Yeah, is this like for money? Are you
Man, none of us had money.
not
We
not
put it
that
all in the
level? Yeah,
cars. Yeah, no,
yeah,
this was broke racing for sure, but it was fun, and there was a lot of people. It was a pretty big thing down there for a while. Go out to the industrial parks, and there was half a mile, so you could go for quite a ways. It was pretty cool.
yeah. uh, so where does drag racing and the Prelude take you? Like how long do you have the Prelude, or where
Man,
does this evolve?
I think I blew the motor on the Prelude at 386,000 miles, so it
What did it
lasted.
have? What did it have when you bought it?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm sure it was over 200, but I mean,
386.
386
So
was a lot.
what's the distance to the moon? It's like 256 or 252 or something
The
like that?
Prelude went to the moon and back, man. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. It was a lot of miles. And it was such a night, it just blew the head gasket very gently on the side of the highway.
Oh, yeah.
And that was it. It wasn't worth fixing it. So, but the timing was good. I was sort of, I wasn't sick of drag racing, but I was losing interest in it. Um, some things around that were changing in import cars anyway. I really enjoyed it felt like we were hot rodding in the 1940s or 50s. Like there were no parts around. The grown-ups didn't understand. It was a really fun era. And as it became more popular, it kind of lost some of its shine for me. But what I did learn from that was that I was really interested in making parts. That was the part that stuck with me, was that the struggle was kind of the fun part. Like if I see this on a newer car, what do I have to do to replicate that, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so that's kicking around in the back of my head for sure. So
I love
I'm
that. I love, like, if you can just order parts from Summit Racing or Jegs or Amazon and then bolt it on, it's not the same level of satisfaction as going to Summit and you're like, I need this part and it does not exist. You're like, oh shit, okay, now I have to make it, and then you get creative. Uh, I don't know. I actually, now that I think about it, I love that challenge. If you own a Camaro, you own a '68 Camaro, you can build that entire car from the Summit Racing catalog.
yeah,
But if you own a Hudson Hornet or something and you lose an exhaust manifold, it's like, guess what? Now you have to learn like metal 3D printing or casting or something like that. It
yeah,
forces you to learn this, like, this new technique, this new skill. I know I had to teach myself how to weld many times over because something broke and it was one of one, and I had to go out and figure it out. So the early Prelude was that for you?
yeah. It was. It definitely it ignited kind of just how do I get this thing? How do I go from A to B? I can't find what I want, and then that becomes kind of an addiction too, right? Like
Yeah,
you unlock you unlock one thing, and you're like, okay, well now I know how to use a drill press, or now know how to tap
yeah.
something. And you're like, but it'd be really cool if this thing had like a beveled edge. So how do I do that?
So, and you're doing this on grocery store money? That was your first job?
That was first job. Yeah. First real, like over, first real job was grocery store. Went from the grocery store to, I think I went to silk screening t-shirts and all that. Um, Working for a place that did that. Eventually found my way to graphic design, sort of by accident, right? Like I had been skateboarding over the weekend. I hurt my wrist and I couldn't pull the silk screen squeegee anymore. And the guy who owned the place was like, "Hey, you, I'm not going to pay you to not do your job. So here's an option. Either you're done, or you can learn how to do graphic design, and you can design all of our
You could push a
vinyl stuff."
mouse. You can push a
Yeah,
mouse with a
yeah.
broken
It
wrist.
was
Yeah.
it was my left hand so that I'd hurt. So I'm right-handed. I was in good shape there. Um, so I picked that up. I learned graphic design, um, and then that's sort of like level two as of young Bryce, on like, holy crap. There's like a whole universe where if I can draw these things, now I have a better chance of actually getting something made. Pre CNC still, but now I can make prints, or now I can check measurements. Still a lot of grinders, cut off wheels and that kind of stuff, and anything I'm fabricating. But
So is this like Adobe Illustrator or Corel
this was
Draw or
even
FlexiSign?
cheaper. No, it
Yeah.
was Freehand 10 was the
Oh,
program,
okay. Yeah.
and I don't even think it's around anymore. But it was, it was 2D vector, uh, tracing over someone's like picture of their logo, or trying to make something for them on a vinyl cutter. But what a cool introduction though, because you could take that pretty far. You could get pretty good at 2D art, and then when 3D finally came around, it wasn't a crazy stretch. Like you already kind of had the fundamentals for it.
Yeah. Well, like a little bit of trivia or history about SendCutSend. One of the first file types that we launched was Adobe Illustrator support, because that's what I learned in. Like, I knew a little bit of AutoCAD, but for my career, most of the time I was running Adobe Illustrator. And so when we started SendCutSend, we're like, oh, we should take DXFs, but then EPS and Adobe Illustrator, because personally I was like, that's what I'm best in. So I've designed so many car parts in Adobe Illustrator, which is like the worst. Like the worst.
It's a rough one for that, man.
It's so bad, and it causes so many problems in production. But it works, and that was like intro to CAD CAM, I guess. And it's cool to hear, how graphic artists can kind of have that early intro, because some of these graphic design programs are very intuitive. It's relatively simple compared to like some, parametric CAD or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you have that as a building block, you can keep going, because I mean, you're a freaking wizard in Fusion and SolidWorks now.
Yeah. I mean, but that was, knowing that going into it was clutch, because I may have lost interest in Fusion or SolidWorks if I didn't have that background in it at that point.
Yeah, I noticed. I years ago I taught myself Fusion, and I can see how frustrating that would be if you had no prerequisite. Like if you've never used any kind of CAD software, even Illustrator or Freehand, or even Tinkercad or something. Someone just dumps you into Fusion, and you're like,
oh man,
holy shit, what am I doing? However, side note, we do have our new education series that's out with the lovely Jake Holland, and that's pretty badass. So he does guide you through going through the education process. I feel like this is like a real podcast. I like just did an advertisement for us.
You did.
Okay. Wow.
Perfect.
Okay.
split up a notch, man.
Sponsored, but thank you to our sponsor, SendCutSend. Shout out to Jake Holland. All right. So where are we at in your life? Are you done with high school at this point?
Yeah, at this point, I'm done with high school. I think I went first job after high school was going into silk screening.
Okay.
Silk screening shirts and doing vinyl signs.
Any college or anything? High school and then
not at that point. So at that point, I wasn't ready to go to school, and so I did end up going back to school eventually. But I was actually in my early 30s before I.
All right, hang on. I want to pull on that a little bit. You said you're not ready for school. Like, I love that. I wish that was more well known. People right now, they're like, well, after I graduate, I go to school because that's what my parents told me, or that's what society wants me to do. How are you able to say like, this ain't me right now? Is there family telling you this, or are you just like, fuck that? How did you know?
It was actually a pretty good mix of that. So there wasn't a whole lot of push for me to go to college, to be honest with you. It wasn't one of the families that insisted that you do that.
Skateboarder Bryce,
drag racing, making noise.
Drag race. Yeah, illegal drag racing. They're like, school's not for you.
Yeah, exactly. we gave up hope on that one. So there wasn't a whole lot of family pressure. And honestly, I didn't know at that point what I would go for. It didn't seem to make a whole lot of sense if I could, just go to work. And work seemed pretty interesting. I think as soon as I got exposure right after school into a business, even something as mundane as silk screening, you're like immediately see this world that you never see as a high school kid, or at least for most high school kids. Like I didn't know what like work was like on a Monday through Friday. Like people go to lunch. You leave the building. Like that's so foreign to a high school person. And so I was really quickly enamored with sort of that small business, like the freedom and like this just seeing all the things that they were doing. It was as interesting to me as fabrication was. This like weird world where there wasn't rules. They didn't have to go to fourth period they just worked until the work was done, or had vacation days. It was really a cool thing to see. So I was into that. I was more into that than I was into school at the time. And so I just said, I'm going to make it without school. The initial thought was I would do it just, I would be okay without school. Or, 20-year-old, 18-year-old self is like, I don't need that. I'm smart enough. I was wrong. I was wrong on parts of that. I wasn't smart enough yet, but
Well, 18 to 27-year-old men are pretty stupid. We're the dumbest creatures in the world. Actually, like 13 to 27. Sorry for all you 25-year-old guys. You're pretty dumb still. It gets slightly better after 25. Not much.
Yeah.
So, but you enjoy your work. Like, that's the thing. I think if you had a job, like if you're working at Target or something, and you're like, oh God, I got to go to school so that I can do something better. But you're enjoying like the graphic design. You're enjoying the silk screening.
I was, yeah.
Did you have like a couple cool dudes? Cool dudes? Did you have a couple cool dudes that you were working with? I mean, that usually makes you stick around. Yeah.
Yep. There was definitely, and they were into cars. Like I remember one of them used to pick me up from my house every once in a while in an NSX, and back then that was a fairly new NSX.
Yeah.
So I thought these guys walked on water. They were the coolest. So yeah, definitely some cool influence back then.
Yeah, I was going to say, if anyone out there is like feeling lost about your path or whatever, if you're working with someone really cool, that's going to sway you. Like maybe you're like, oh, I want to be a welder, or I want to be into graphic design, or I want to be a lawyer or whatever. What'll happen is you end up working with really cool people, and you just want to keep that feeling. And so you may take a totally different career path just because you're working with like cool dudes who are showing you how maybe a lame industry could actually be interesting. I know that happened to me. I worked at a sign shop, and it was pretty cool work, but it made it better because there was a couple older guys. I was like 16, 17, and the guys were probably 25, 27, and I just thought they were the coolest dudes. They did not drive NSXs at all. But 16, 17, 18-year-old me was like, I could do this forever. I like going to lunch. I like hanging out with these guys.
Yep.
No, that's cool. So, okay. So you said you didn't go to school yet. So it sounds like there's school on the horizon for some reason.
Skipping forward a little bit, I went back in my early 30s. I already had a career. I'd been working for a while, for a good long while at that point. But I thought, this is gonna bottom out at some point. I'm gonna reach the top of my potential here. When you go to apply for a lot of jobs, it's like, it doesn't matter what your experience level is. You can't get it past the door without a bachelor's degree. And so I said, well, I mean, if you can't beat them, join them. So here we go. And so I went and I did it for 2 years. I worked a full-time job when I was a full-time student. And I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot of things. I learned how to cram, how to really batten down. But then I was sitting in class one night, and I was watching the teacher go over some lecture. I forget what it was. But I thought, this person went to school for this. This is what she's doing, what she wanted to do. She elected to go be a teacher, and that's awesome. She's obviously stoked about it. But I don't want really what's on the other end of this. I don't just want to have a degree in whatever I could get, running night classes or whatnot. I already knew what I wanted, and I was already actively pursuing it at work in the daytime. And so that was a hard decision, because I knew that, I didn't want to be the guy who started college and then left, but I went, man, if I put this much effort into my own business, or into doubling down on what I'm doing at work now, what the hell, man? It's worth a gamble to go and bet on myself than to start over again with a piece of paper that said that I could pay attention in class for 4 years. Not to take anything away from getting a degree, but for me, that was what it was.
Yeah, I like the investment in self. Oftentimes, some of our younger staff will come up to me and be like, "Jim, you're a super smart like businessman and investor," and I'm like, "No, I'm not. I'm retarded." But they're like, what do you invest in? What stocks? I'm thinking about buying Tesla or Apple or whatever. And I was like, dude, you need to invest in yourself. Like the biggest payoff that you can have is not necessarily from the stock market or whatever. It's from like leveling up. It's that compounding interest that you get from, going from $20 an hour to 40 to, $200,000 a year, whatever. Invest in those skills, invest in whatever is going to help you increase your income. The earlier you can increase income, the more it'll compound. So
Yeah.
if you can be 25 years old and um, get some skills that are going to allow you to make, $100,000 at 25 years old instead of $100,000 at 35 years old, you have that 10 years of compounding interest basically. And uh, for me, I think it's better than the stock market. Although NVIDIA, I should have probably put some money in NVIDIA.
Yeah, I missed that one too. So you're not alone.
Well, talk to me about, like, you said you did this in your 30s, right? So you were
Yeah.
working somewhere for a while and you thought that you were going to hit a ceiling. Do you think, talk to me about, you're working somewhere and your skills are growing, you're with that company for a long time. Is there really a ceiling if you don't have a bachelor's, or does it depend on the company? Like, will some companies say, like, I don't care about your education, I care about your skill set, and they'll keep leveling you up? Or do you find that, like, everywhere there's kind of a ceiling if you don't have that?
I don't think I don't think that ceiling is universal by any stretch. I think it depends on where you are. I think in my case in particular, I had worked at a place for a long time with a plan of buying the company. We had discussed a plan of me successing the owner when he aged out of it. As we got closer to it, that plan was starting to. It wasn't looking like it was actually going to happen, and so I thought, oh, I might have to actually go back in the workforce. I've been concentrating on this company
Oh,
for so long. If I have to re-enter, I have to re-enter with a pretty boring resume because I've been at this one company for so long.
yep.
Um, and I
Okay.
didn't want to go down.
Yeah, I think you
Yeah.
nailed it then. Okay. So at an existing company, you may be able to go all the way to the top. Who cares about education? But when you have to start brand new at a new company, then they only know you on resume, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Uh, Talk to me about aging out. Like he was like, I'm gonna sell you this company, and then what's it turn into? He's like, actually, I'm just not gonna be here anymore. You're gonna do all the work, and then I'm gonna keep the company.
Whoa, were you there? That's that's pretty much exactly how it went. And then so
Weird.
he essentially gave me the keys to this company, which it's gonna sound salty, but I don't mean it to be, because it was an amazing, like, you cannot pay for the education that I got there, because I ran someone else's company where they weren't there for a lot of the time, and so I it was gradual. He didn't do that on day one, but I got to learn all these things. The company grew as a result, and at some point, I kind of did myself a bad thing. If the company was worth too much money, I couldn't afford it anyway. At that
Oh
point, by the time that we
shit.
got to that point, it had grown substantially, and
Uh,
so
yeah, I've heard stories similar to that where there's going to be some sort of succession plan, and the young guy who's going to take over is like, I can't deploy, all these great ideas I have for growth, because if I do it, I'm going to knock myself, out of the ballpark. The
yeah,
valuation is going to be too high, and then I can't afford it. So you have to, like, sandbag the company, and then, oh God, yeah,
yeah.
that's a nightmare.
Yeah, and so I mean that's kind of what I had in mind with this, was like, all right, I'll be chill, and I'll have notebooks full of ideas and things I'm gonna do. And that all went great until about 2008 when the recession hit, and then it was like, bring all the notebooks in, like, we got to keep this thing afloat, and try and keep it going. But there again too, that presented its own unique opportunities, because as we let people go, I absorbed their jobs, and so that took my, like, graphic design into 3D modeling, into running all different kinds of CAM software. I mean,
What
unintentionally, it.
what company is this? Where are you doing? Where are you doing graphic design and CAM software and everything else?
So we didn't do graphic design there, but
Okay.
this is a company that was in Seattle called Enco, and we did turnkey stores for the optometry industry, and so we had it's a really again, another really weird niche, but
Okay.
it was
What's the glasses place? The 1 hour. lens crafters.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
like lens, yeah, and
okay,
they
so
used
like
to.
if you go into the mall and you see like a lens crafters with like the display with all the glasses and stuff, like you're making the displays, you're making the countertops and stuff.
In the beginning, we started off just there, and in the end, we were making the displays, all the casework, the carpets, the lighting, the wall colors, the medical equipment. I mean, it was literally a turnkey office. They would tell us what we want or what
Hmm.
they want, and we'd go in there and just and make it happen. Which was again such a cool, unique challenge because every one of those is difficult. I can tell you horror stories about just how hard it is to get carpet reliably. That's good God. Um,
Well, and at the mall, don't you need to do like all the work at night and stuff too? Isn't there something around
yeah,
that?
it's kind of funny in that industry. Like once you start looking for them, it's like if you're looking at a car and all of a sudden you see them all over the place. Once you start looking for optometry clinics, you'll see them everywhere. So they're not just in the mall. There's a ton of standalone or strip mall or whatever. It's a huge, really competitive industry too, just doing these build outs for these stores.
But if you're doing turnkey, you're wearing many hats. Like you said, you're picking out carpet, like you're an interior designer, but then you're also designing like display cabinets and stuff, which is more like architectural or
Yeah.
you know CAD CAM type stuff. And
Yeah.
that's super cool.
Yeah. It was an awesome mix of all these different materials and mediums and ways to build things. Cause again, you walk into lens crafters and look at like what's holding the glasses and there's some cool stuff in there, man. There's some interesting things that are built so that no one ever notices them.
So so anyway, this business, the guy's like, I'm going to retire, and then he goes to retire, and it doesn't really work out. What do you do? Are you like, I'm going to go look for something else?
Yeah. I'll be totally honest. I waited for a while just trying to figure this out. Like, oh man, I was gonna do this, and I didn't move fast enough. I should have left earlier than I did, but I waited it out for a while to see if we could make it work. And then that's about the time that I went back to school, and I said, okay, this isn't going to work out. I need to get a plan B. Um,
So
and
then
then
where's next? Yeah, where do you
so
end up?
yeah, so I end up starting a business while I'm doing my own projects after hours, essentially out of my garage for the long time, doing design for people, doing product design, uh, and that's awesome. It's not taking off. It's not going gangbusters, but I'm learning a lot of the entrepreneurial things that I'd only seen from a little bit of a distance. You know?
Dude, I love when employees become entrepreneurs because you have employees that are like, no, this is my design and this is how it needs to be. This is perfect. Or even better, like when mechanical engineers become entrepreneurs. When they're employees, they're just like, no, this is what the specs are, whatever. And then all of a sudden you force those guys to run their own business, and they're like, actually, I'm gonna cut this corner and I'm gonna cut this corner, and I'm going to like cheap out here a little bit. I'm gonna use a little bit thinner material, because all of a sudden you're exposed to the dollars and cents. You're exposed to payroll. You're exposed to insurance. You're exposed to all this stuff, and you're like, oh wait, I can't just sit there and dream up these perfect designs and just assume that it's going to
Oh
actually make
man,
me money.
dude, like that's in manufacturing specifically. Perfect just doesn't ever happen. You can deliver really great quality, but as far as design goes, like unless you have unlimited VC money, you've got to design it so that it can be built and be built quickly and profitably. Perfect is your enemy. Good enough is frequently the right way to go,
So
and
in
it's hard
this
to get perspective on.
a million percent in the CNC shop here, we play a little game called Spot the VC. Uh, you can go through the totes of CNC parts, and when you see something that's incredibly complex and it's like 5-axis surfacing and whatever, you just look at the part, and without looking at the work order or anything, you're like, 1,000,000% VC backed. And sure enough, you flip it over and you're like, yep, VC backed.
Two
You look up the
points.
company, and then you look at the stuff that's like a square with a hole in it or whatever. uh, Guarantee that that company is most likely bootstrapped, or maybe profitable,
Yeah,
because they understand, like, it's not going to be this beautiful, insane thing. It's going to get the job done, and it's going to get it done fast and under budget. So yeah,
yeah.
I love any time someone can get exposed to the punch in the face that is entrepreneurship. It makes you a better designer, makes you better at your craft, whether you're self-employed or not.
Yeah, I think it makes you a better employee. As odd as that is, like you just get this. It's like the last curtain, right? Like you're already in management or whatever. You've already excelled at what you're doing, and the last curtain is the other side where you go, oh my god, that not everything is polished. It is kind of crazy. Taxes are already due again. Like there's just nuts, man. So that was really good exposure for me on that. I learned a ton really fast, and I had some great customers. I did some cool things. I got in with public artists who were making these big, grand public art things. It's funded by the city or federally, and they would have these very cool ideas, and they had no idea how to build them. And so, concept wise, they had very cool ideas, but there was no way to get from A to B. They couldn't go to a fab shop or to a job shop and say, give me this AI picture that or Adobe Illustrator picture that I've made, Photoshop rendering. So I was the go-between, sort of like a ghostwriter for these guys. They maintained all the credit of having designed it, but I would go in and be like, okay, what do you need out of this? What does this have to do? Is this outside? Do we need to use stainless hardware? And it seems like really common sense stuff if you've done it before. But if you're more of a big picture, pretty picture person, it's not as intuitive as you would think.
Yeah, I picture these artists like dressed in black robes, long hair, and they're just like, oh, I have this vision of this amazing installation. And there's someone behind the curtain, Bryce, who's like, son of a bitch, like this weldment is not going to work. And so you're solving all these things. Like a big art installation would be like the Bean in Chicago or something like that, right? That type of public park scale thing.
Yeah, and so in Seattle, I'm not sure if it's nationwide, but there was a certain percentage of every building that went up in the city they had to set aside for a piece of public art. And so I think it was like,
that sounds like Seattle.
Yeah, it's like 2%. It was a big number, and so you see some really cool public art in Seattle because of it.
That's how all these artists get all the money then.
Oh yeah, if you do it right,
jeez,
yeah,
they're just giving it away.
Another business.
So, okay, you're going to school, you're running your own business, you're working at this place. Are you married too at this point?
Yeah, I'm married at that point. So
okay, that's busy, man. That's super busy.
Very forgiving wife. My wife had a very different schedule than I did. She was a pharmacy technician, and so she didn't get off until like 7 or 8 p.m. at night. I started work at 6 or 7. And so I could work 2 jobs and get home right on time with her. We could have dinner at the same time. I would be, now I'd be exhausted, but I'm in my 20s and 30s. I got energy for days, man. So, so it worked out really well where it didn't affect our time together. We got married. I think we were 25. So we've been doing it for a while.
So I think when we found you were working at the pinball place, right?
Yeah. So I left the place in Seattle. Wanted to get out of there. Was ready to move to a different place. So I took a job as a manufacturing engineer at a pinball company in San Antonio. Right away, I knew I'd made a huge mistake. Like first day, I was like, "Oh crap! This was a bad move." But
wait. Okay, so that we can all learn from this, you see a help wanted ad or something, right?
Yeah.
And then you go in for an interview.
Yep. Yeah.
The interview was good, or did you miss red flags?
You know what? I was too optimistic. Looking back, the red flags were like they were waving them, just so proudly.
Okay,
and I was like, dude, this is a good job.
Yeah.
I just unorganized. The guys were really unorganized and pretty unprofessional. And I should have seen through that they were full of crap. And so part of what I was supposed to go down there and do was set up this massive manufacturing facility where they were going to put out, I forget the numbers now. It was like 50 pinball games a day or something, which if you're not familiar with that industry, that's insane. That's just a crazy amount of machines. And they had told me that they had already bought all these machines. They said, everything's there. It's all shrink wrapped in a warehouse. So when you get here, you'll do the layout, you do the manufacturing engineer layout, the workflow, and all this. When I got on the first day when I got there were no machines. There was literally like they had a Chinese laser that did CO2 and fiber, but it didn't do either of them very good.
Oh no.
Like a grizzly lathe, yeah,
Oh
like
no.
just like nothing. And so I should have seen right there that I was like, man, that was a bad deal.
Uh, how can our listeners avoid this? Like, ask to see the shop floor, or so, hey, yeah, here's the interview, but hey, like, let's actually go see the facility.
Yeah, I think
Thing.
that's given the fact that it was during COVID. I didn't fly down to go and see him in person, and so that would have been the saving grace because I would have never taken that job.
But you moved, like
Yeah,
you flew down, you moved. You're like, I got this new job.
I was ready. We were like ready to go. Like had already been prepping our house to go, and so we were like, hey, here's a job, here's a way out. But the plan fully was that in 2 years, 3 years, I would go all in on my business. And so I was like, this is a paycheck. However bad it is, I can live with it for 2 or 3 years, you know?
Yeah. But look for the grizzly lathes. If you're interviewing, look out for the Chinese lasers and the grizzly lathes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh God.
It was something. So it was a huge office building that they were going to try and make into a manufacturing plant. And so it was also multiple levels. So you couldn't get anything that you received, which it wasn't set up to do correctly anyway, to the place where you'd have to assemble things. It was a nightmare. It was in the end, I worked there for exactly 1 year. I started on July 13th. I was laid off on July 13th the next year because the SEC shut us down. Because
like the Securities and Exchange Commission?
Yeah,
SEC?
yeah. The SEC.
Why?
That's the one. So the guy who owned it, the whole time we worked there, its money is just weird. They just spend money really odd. They're always broke or they're always rich. It was just really strange. Turns out the guy who owned it also had a hedge fund, like an investment company, and he was taking people's investments and just dumping it into this goofy dream of a pinball company.
Because he's a crazy pinball nerd. Like he loves
super pinball guy. Yeah. And like the pinball people are they're very passionate.
So this is like pinball Ponzi scheme.
The biggest Ponzi scheme in Texas history.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if there's something to be proud of, I guess that's it. But it was, so the SEC came in, they shut it down. There was no paychecks, no severance. Just you've got like 2 minutes to get out of the building, get out of here. You're done.
Oh my God. What does your wife say?
She was very concerned. She was like, "Why do we have to move back? Like, is this a reset? Do we have to go back to Seattle?" It was compounded by the fact that everyone I met here, I was being in the manufacturing engineer position, I was meeting with all of our vendors. I developed all these relationships. Because we got shut down immediately, we didn't pay any of them. So literally everyone I knew in Texas hated me. And I was getting phone calls for months, man.
So instead of using your network to go like work at a vendor or something, you can't answer your phone.
I burned it. Yeah, the network was sufficiently burned. And so it was super scary. I mean, it really was. We didn't know what we were going to do. I think by that point, 2021, the whole COVID thing was pretty well over. So it happened on a Tuesday, and the next morning I incorporated in Texas, and I just said I wasn't ready to start a business again, but I'm gonna do it. And holy crap, it worked, man. It worked really well. This time I was fully on my own. I was very hungry. I took everything. I took too much. I had too little.
That's what you do though. When you're starting out, you don't have the choice. You need money, so you say yes to everything, and then eventually you learn what to say no to.
Yeah. And that's a hard lesson sometimes. Yeah. Because sometimes a great job will come in and it looks, if you squint, it looks good, but deep down, it's not a good fit. But, so yeah, I did that.
You were using SendCutSend a little bit. Yeah.
I was. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I was
at the pinball company too.
I was actually, yes. I was actually using it in SendCutSend in Seattle. I mean, when you're in a position where you're making things and you're like making these connections on how things work, like one of the most important parallels that I think that comes with that is where you can get the things that you need. So like you know that like Bob down the street has a pretty rad tube bender. The guy over there has a good welding setup. I can get machining if I trade this guy beer, or fix his car or whatever. And so like as an engineer, that's what you're doing a lot of times is like putting together this Rolodex. If you're old enough to know what that is, you're putting together a Rolodex
or your microfiche.
Yeah, your microfiche. But you're putting in this list of people that can help you get done what you need to get done. And so when SendCutSend came out, man, I remember losing my mind, like because you couldn't get anyone at the fiber laser to talk to you, not for 5 parts. It was a huge MOQ, and so I was definitely paying attention. I was ordering parts in Seattle. I took you guys to pinball to such a degree that people used to ask if I was getting a cut of all the orders. Because like, why are you pushing so hard for SendCutSend? I'm like, hey, we can make this stuff in America. It's super cool.
Whatever you did, it still has residual effects because we're still like in the pinball industry deep. Like I see all kinds of pinball names come through the system. I had no idea pinball was that big. The only pinball machines I've ever played on are like 1980s or 70s or something. I didn't know people were still making them and that into it.
It's still big. There's a big show out here in Texas. It's sort of like the Comic-Con for pinball. But
are you allowed to go, or are you like blacklisted?
No, I'm not. I went back. I contracted for another pinball company. We did some really cool stuff. So I'm not blacklisted, which is good. Although the first year I was nervous that people would recognize me. The first year I went to one of those shows. But I worked with another Texas pinball company as a contractor. We designed a really rad new approach to pinball. Very, very modern. Pinball has like a lot of rules, and we were just like, why break one? Let's break all of the rules. So it had so much custom cool stuff on it, and they hated it, man. It was just they did not like that.
Yeah, you can't do something different. It's if it's classic, it has to remain classic.
Yeah.
So how do you end up at SendCutSend?
So I'm using SendCutSend for my business. I'm using SendCutSend for the job where I'm a contractor at this other pinball joint, and as such, I'm on the mailing list. And so an email goes out that says we're looking for people, and so I sent back some long-winded emails saying, hey, I'm interested in coming on. Here's the thing. I don't want to come on full time. I'm not sure that this is the position for me, but I want to be connected to this company because it was such a huge like increase to my tool belt to have SendCutSend, and like the feeling about SendCutSend was so strong. I was like, man, I don't even have time in the day to do this, but I will work an extra 4 hours a day just to get to be part of this company.
I remember this. I remember we interviewed you and I was like, oh, that's the guy. And then I think Aaron or somebody was like, well, he's the part-timer though. Like, I was like, shit, that is the guy to hire. Get him. They're like, well, he comes with this like terrible score reduction, which is, ultra part-time. And I remember we're like, well, screw it. Give him the job. We will like just boil the frog until he is just working for us full time. And I think he'll love it. And so, we definitely tried to manipulate you to get you to.
It worked.
Yeah. I remember, if you can hire your customers, that's great. If you can hire your best customers, it's even better. You were a great customer. You understood everything. But yeah, you also have those entrepreneurial blood in your veins. And it's tough to get entrepreneurs to kind of, get both feet on one side of the fence. And so, I don't know how long it was, but you were kind of still doing your own thing and kind of, you were dating us, but then you had a mistress, type thing. Eventually we got you to marry us.
You did. I think that was actually the conversation. It was that, you said something like, I'm not going to be your girlfriend anymore. I don't want to be the side chick.
I've used that analogy a lot. We've had a couple guys who have had mistresses, and I'm like, look, it's at the point where, you have to choose one of us. Sometimes we can do it, but it's best when when it's fully dedicated. So anyway, thank you for dedicating to us.
Yeah, couldn't be
Happy
happier.
anniversary. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're kind of coming to the end here. You've had this wild path of, working at a grocery store and racing Preludes and running your own business and getting involved in a Ponzi scheme without being arrested somehow.
Yeah.
What's a piece of advice that you'd love to tell the audience about, anything, life experience, career path, whatever? What's your favorite piece of advice to give out?
I would say, like, in regard to like the fabrication, engineering, all that stuff, I would say that the best thing that you can do for yourself is get into a shop, sweep a floor, do something for free, learn your way instead of paying your way. Like, getting a degree is fantastic, but you can learn so much by just going out and doing it. It's really a priceless education, and I just wouldn't be anywhere near where I am right now if I didn't get the opportunity to go and build stuff and break stuff and crash machines, and and luckily they were someone else's machines. So it was
that's really the best machine.
Yeah.
There's no faster car than a rental. There's no better machine to crash than someone else's.
That's it. Yeah, that's very true.
I had this question come up to me on X the other day. I love to post, like, today is a great day to start manufacturing in America. Like, just go do it. Go figure it out. And one of the responses, this guy goes, I'm a PhD student. How do I start? And I was like, go work in a shop. Like, I don't care what kind of PhD you're getting. Go sweep a floor. Go do anything inside a shop. And if you're a PhD student, you're probably pretty smart. Like, you'll figure a bunch of stuff out really, really quickly.
Yeah.
But you can't just, like, be a PhD student and have some thesis on entrepreneurship and manufacturing and then just think it's going to work. Like, you got to go bust your knuckles a little bit.
You do.
Get your hands dirty.
And pay a lot of attention too, I think. Like, you can learn so much by watching other entrepreneurs, people that you're working for, the shop next to you or whatever, like, see these really common mistakes. And learn from other people's mistakes. You don't have to make all of them. You don't have to get all the broken knuckles. There's a lot to see in manufacturing where after a while you go, that's probably not the best that's not the best approach to do that. Or, like, have you guys talked to so-and-so about just machining that instead of carving it off of the file? There's a lot there. So you can learn so much just by watching people or asking people to. That's an amazingly underused thing. If you want to know how to build something, someone who's building it will probably tell you if you just ask them and listen to what they say.
Yeah, I agree, man. Dude, thank you for doing this. This was awesome. I hope everyone learned a little something, especially how to identify red flags during an interview for a potential Ponzi scheme. Yeah. Awesome. I know we have a beautiful outro by producer Dom, which is going to probably play now. Thanks for watching.
Do we have an outro? Am I supposed to say something?
Can you say, like, thanks for listening? Love to have your feedback. Find us on Insta and YouTube at SendCutSend.
Can we just use that?
Thanks for joining us on today's episode. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can email us at justgonnasendit@sendcutsend.com or find us on socials at SendCutSend at Jim Belosic. Don't forget to subscribe, download, and share with your friends. Thanks again for listening. We'll catch you on the next episode.